So last night's episode of Supergirl was so good that for the first time ever, there is no worst list. That's right, we need all 10 slots to celebrate how awesome this episode was. And in fact, there was only one teensy tiny thing that I didn't like about the episode, and I'm gonna mention it because I don't want to see it happen again. CBS, I'm looking at you. And I'm talking about the obvious plug at the beginning of the episode for CBS's The Talk. I mean, it was so blatant and so in favor of the network over the show that I would actually put it up there with Les Moonves, the head of CBS, casting his wife as the head host on The Talk to begin with. It just really rubbed me the wrong way, and I would hate to see Cat Grant show up on Stephen Colbert next. I'm curious, did any of you mind that? Or were you like, wow, Cat Grant's out in the real world? That is exactly, though, what took me out of it. It took me out of the show. It, too much reminded me that this was, it wasn't real. It broke the magic of the fictional universe that I love so much. And last night was one of its best nights ever. And you know what I love most about evil Supergirl? I love that she moves the plot forward. Wow, leaps and bounds forward. Not just in terms of storylines, but character development. I also think it's hilarious that she wears too much lip gloss. That's the distinction between evil and good, according to the producers of this show. Bad girls just slather it on. All right, so let's get to the top 10 things, 10 about last night's episode. They're in no particular order, but we gotta start with Martian Manhunter versus Supergirl. That was spectacular. I loved the fact that Martian Manhunter revealed himself, and now National City has 2 public superheroes. This can't go away now, and I'm so glad because I want to see more Martian Manhunter. I also thought the fight itself was very good. Very good visual effects, almost I would say movie level. At points, it reminded me of the Man of Steel fight between Superman and Zod. So that was spectacular. I loved it in particular when they went up the side of the Catco building. And I would thought that was very nice of Cat not to mention that later on when Kara came to apologize. It'd be like, first you throw me off my building, then you put a really bad dent in it. I don't have Supergirl insurance. No one will give it to me. So I thought that was just fantastic. I also really liked this development of, Martian Manhunter, voluntarily being imprisoned. And make no mistake about it, not only could Alex probably break him out, but don't forget, he can phase through stuff, as he did when he broke into Maxwell Lord's secret lab. So I would suspect he's so chill about being in that prison cell because he can leave at any time he wants. Because I know it's supposed to hold aliens, but I think only he and Alex know that he can do that. I don't even think Alex knows. I just think Maxwell Lord knows that he can do that. So the 2 of them are the only ones, so they wouldn't set the cell to try and counteract that ability. Next time they go and visit Hank in his cell, I would love it if he was eating Oreos. I mean, that's one of the only things they haven't done that's like classic Martian Manhunter, that and Fear of Fire. So that's what I'm looking for. But if he was just sitting in there casually, dunking Oreos in milk, I would just be like, Martian Manhunter? Although I already feel that way about the character, so well realized on this show. And he's going to become an even bigger part of it now. Now, we'll get back to him in just a minute, but the second thing that I wanted to say that I liked about this episode was that it was not a 2-parter. When I was doing my notes while watching the show, I was all ready to start this review going, not a 2-parter, darn you, producers! But it wasn't. I couldn't believe it. They fit everything into a single episode. And not only did they fit everything into a single episode, but they did so without making the story feel rushed or that we were cheated out of seeing certain things. I felt like a very complete story. And so I loved that. Very impressed with what they were able to accomplish, again, in just, and that's not even, they don't even get the full 60 minutes because of commercials. It's really only about 45. So very, very good. Then back to Martian Manhunter for number 3. I love this brewing romance with the senator. And that senator is very aggressive. When she reached over and squeezed his hand in front of everyone, I was like, whoa, that's bold. I hope you've been picking up signals from him that he's into you, because otherwise I think that Hank might be developing a pretty strong sexual harassment case to take to Human Resources. That would be very embarrassing for you, Senator. Don't forget, it's the modern workplace. I loved when Kara did that, that reaction to Alex when it happened. Not only because it was good gossip, but Like, wow, super unprofessional and also very risky. But I really would like to see them together as a couple. I think they're a good match. I know they're not in a good place right now, but I think that's just a really bad knee-jerk reaction to the guy you want to date turning out to be an alien, and you're being like, so many questions about how, if we can date, should we date, what will my family and constituents say? Although that could be an interesting thing for her next election. She should think about it. But anyway, I also would like to see Hank get more of a personal life. I'm glad that he has such a good father figure relationship with Alex and Kara, but sometimes it feels a bit weird. Like, these are two grown women. They don't need a father figure as much as maybe you need two daughters, which is, interesting in and of itself. But I just think Hank needs to finally establish a life for himself on Earth, which everyone keeps telling him. And I think this senator might just be a part of it. I loved it. All right, so the fourth thing that I wanted to mention was, speaking of aggressive, Jimmy Olsen got super lucky that this show is rated like PG-13 or PG, because that could have gone really bad with that super aggressive, mean, sexual Kara. I was just like, what's happening? This is so bad. I'm glad we're not taking it to where the natural conclusion would be. Or that, I don't know. It was really, really rough. And I was almost like a door that I maybe think Supergirl wished it hadn't opened. Well, Supergirl herself, I'm sure, wishes it hadn't opened. And I really like the repercussions of that, because, they made it very clear that this wasn't like evil thoughts being put into Kara's head, but red kryptonite simply allowed them to rise to the surface. But they were there. So I liked that Jimmy was like, I liked when he said, I had no idea you were this angry. It's like, really, Jimmy? You just haven't been paying attention, because everybody watching this show knows that Kara is angry. So I thought that was funny. But I'm sure he'll come back around. But it was a natural reaction to, learning of a very different side of someone that you think you thought you know so well. Don't assume about that nice girl in the corner. But anyway, it was great. Now that leads me to number 5, though, because I want to talk about nice versus mean Kara. And this was another example of this show being so well woven from a writing perspective. I mean, it's so great the way they set up the nice factor of Supergirl at the beginning of the episode with Kat's comments saying her greatest superpower is almost her niceness, and then Supergirl doing that wonderful thing for that girl in the schoolyard. I thought those were all such nice, wonderful elements. And I wrote in my notes that I love how this show continues to celebrate the good girl, right? Because that's a stereotype these days that means wet blanket, boring, nobody likes. I think, as I've said before, we should celebrate Sandy from Grease, both versions. Both versions are good. And I think that Supergirl is really an important role model to have, not just because of her strength, physically, but also because of her strength in terms of her goodness. That's just really wonderful to see. But then it was so brilliant because then, of course, they juxtapose that with what happens when she loses that kindness. And that was fantastic. I thought that Melissa Benoist did a great job depicting that. I didn't think she did a good job with Bizarro Supergirl, because she didn't have that deformed mind aspect that's so important to the Bizarro depiction. But here, what I liked about it was that she didn't do a nice girl's interpretation of a mean girl, right? She actually became the mean girl, and it was fantastic. She really she transformed, and I loved that. It wasn't like a layer on top of Supergirl. So I really, really thought that was good. I also found it funny how much she looked like Cat Grant when she started to kind of dress like Cat Grant. And it made me think that maybe that's why Cat sometimes has a soft spot for her, that she's like the daughter that Cat never had. And also I thought it was interesting that when Kara got to be, evil Kara, she was better at her job because she was more in tune with Cat Grant and was able to come up with that numbering system for who would be the most annoying of the applicants. I thought that was very, very clever. So I loved it. And I think that says a little bit about Cat Grant, who we'll get to next. But I also wanted to point out how great it was, just the little touches, like when she was at the bar and she used the peanuts to break the bottles. That was really good. That was just very smart, and it was just showed, the way a super person maybe would they would have fun if they thought everyone around them was just a little ant. I mean, with this episode, they did a better job with evil Kryptonians than they have in any of the previous episodes with Astra and Non and that whole group. So I was really, really impressed. I wish that the evil Kryptonians would act like that a little bit more around town. Be like that biker gang that no one likes. They're like, oh, let's move to the other side of the soda shop because they've showed up. Like that I would love to see more of that. But the next thing that I also thought, by the way, it was very powerful when that girl threw out her Supergirl costume. That was excellent. It was really good also to bring things full circle and to revisit that. And I also really loved when Kara woke up. A number of you tweeted me that this was a very touching episode, and I agree with that. And I love that when Kara woke up, it wasn't just like a light switch where she was like, back to my normal self, let's just all go back to being cool. And they all knew, Kara included, that they could not. And we will discuss that a little bit more as we go down the list, because there's something else that I think ties more directly into that. But right now, for number 6, I want to move to Kat. And I really love Kat Grant. I think she's one of the best female characters I've ever seen on anywhere, in any form of entertainment. Really great. And it's funny that they took this character who was just basically a running gag in the comics and turned her into this. I wish that this was represented more in the comics as well, because it's just so fantastic. But anyway, I think that it's important to make the distinction that Kat Grant isn't mean. You know, even though evil Supergirl was more like Kat Grant is a very complex mix of good and bad. And she really, I think, can control her bad thoughts and uses them, you know, to be more competent, to be a little bit more successful, a little bit more aggressive, to get her point across more. And Kara, you know, being such a nice person, doesn't really have that experience. But I thought it was really good. A couple of things that she said. The one nice thing I liked that she said on the talk, besides about Supergirl being so nice, was that she was the most powerful person in Metropolis. In National City. I think it's really important to drop this distinction between, oh, well, women have their own category and men have their own category. I think, you know, it creates like a lot of bad competition of women against women, you know, men resenting ever having to compete with women, you know, everyone, you know, no subcategories. So I liked that she said that quite a bit. But then I thought it was great that she warned the city about Supergirl. I thought she was really right about that. It was a hard call to make, and Kat was able to make it. And that's something that separates her from Kara's other friends. Well, Kat's not really her friend, but, you know, Jimmy and Wynn are too close to Kara, and they can't make that distinction. But, you know, the Kat was really, Supergirl is so lucky to have people like Hank Henshaw and Kat Grant in her life, because they really are, you know, not only like very experienced, but they're very level-headed. I mean, two really healthy examples of fully functioning, well-adjusted adults, but who still have their problems. And then also the power to forgive, that she forgave Supergirl eventually. I thought that was really showed a lot of personal strength for Kat herself. And I love what she said about, you know, it's going to be hard for them to forgive you. I almost wish she had said, but if my son can forgive me, the city can forgive you. Because, you know, well, she doesn't know that this Kara and Supergirl are one and the same anymore, so she can't make that connection. But I thought that was good advice, and I'm excited to see Supergirl have to deal with the repercussions of this for the next couple of episodes. And on that matter, let's go to number 7. Evil Supergirl dropped a lot of truth bombs. Like, I love that they made such a sophisticated situation out of the red kryptonite, because she could have just been mean to everyone and just said horrible things, you know, just like verbal diarrhea. But the reason the things that Supergirl said were so hurtful was because there was a lot of truth in all of them. And I thought that was really great. And she did a lot of damage. I thought that, but at the same time, what she said to Hank Henshaw compelled him to come out. And I thought she was right about saying, you know, you're not using your strength, you're not representing your people, even though you're the last of your kind. Those were all true. And I thought that what she did to, you know, Jimmy, also, I thought there was a lot of truth there as well. And Jimmy has to deal with that, because Jimmy is someone who has been trying not to face the facts of what happened between him and Lucy and how he feels about Kara. So I think that, you know, he was just totally rattled by having just the Band-Aid ripped off, basically, by evil Kara. But the worst by far and away was Alex. And I thought that what was great about it was that there was a lot of truth to what Kara said, and that their lives are a little bit too much intertwined. Just like Hank needs to get his own life, so does Alex. I wonder if Maxwell Lord will be a part of that life. I have the couples that I'm rooting for. But I thought that it was great that this, and although I thought that the Astra, killing Astra because she hates Kara, was a step too far. Maybe there's a part of Kara that believes that a little bit, but it clearly, I think, was just because Alex and Hank have an incredibly strong bond at this point, which Supergirl doesn't seem to have noticed. Bad sister. And, you know, she would do anything to save him at this point. You could tell that from the end when she had her hand on the glass. I didn't see Supergirl coming to visit him. But anyway, number 8, the red kryptonite. Not only was it great to see it introduced, but also the change. Usually red kryptonite is something that is just, another form of kryptonite, the debris of Krypton that's traveled to Earth, but it's been altered in the cosmos. Something has happened to it. Like, I believe with red kryptonite, it went through some, like, crimson cloud, and that's what made it red. But here, it was synthetic, and Maxwell Lord created it. And I love the idea that kryptonite is something you can play with. I think that's really fantastic. And I do believe that sometime in the past, Batman has created red kryptonite on his own. But I thought it was really good, and I liked when Alex said you created what you feared the most in trying to protect yourself from it. That was a good lesson. Although I'm very suspicious as to why Maxwell Lord is being so nice, right? I would love to think it's because he likes Alex, but I don't think that's the reason. So I would be a little bit more, I guess everyone was just so worried about Supergirl both personally and as a threat that they didn't pay attention, but he's acting awfully sketchy. But I like that he created red kryptonite. Then number 9, I loved Perry White being brought into the show, even though it was just so subtle. And I loved that the Daily Planet was brought into the show by association. They never even said the Daily Planet. They just had Perry White. But I thought that was fantastic. I loved, but also, that this is the way Kara got rid of Siobhan. Because this is like, that was very real world business. I thought that the way it was handled was, I mean, an evil Supergirl was so smart to take her out that way. And also the fact that even though they're rival publications, that Cat Grant would call up Perry White, who she has a history with, not all of it good, and have a discussion about Siobhan, breaking her trust and going behind her back and keeping her from getting a job there. That's the way I think it would actually go down in real life. So I love that. I thought it was good that the show was very faithful to real world business practices and business politics, which definitely exists. So I thought that was great. Then number 10. 10 isn't so much something I liked about the episode, but a question that I have for you. Because they had a discussion, a panel with the Supergirl actors and creators the other day, and they talked about having diversity on the show. And they said, someone had said, well, when are you going to bring in an LGBT character? And Jeremy Jordan, who plays Win Schott, said, I think that Win should be gay. And I thought it was interesting that he said that, because as I said when I first started reviewing this show, my gaydar was going off like crazy with Win. I was like, that character is gay. But I've come to accept that they're not playing him that way, and I kind of like his relationship with Siobhan. And I know that Jeremy Jordan is not gay in real life. He happens to be married to a woman. But he's open to playing the character as gay, and it just brought me back to my initial reaction to Win. And now that and the producers, they're like, oh, we don't think we're going to do that with Win. But the fact that Jeremy Jordan wanted to see it happen, and that I felt that way about the character, it's kind of, I don't know if I can go back again, right? Like I started out thinking Win was gay, then I was like, okay, he's not gay, but now I'm back there, and it feels right for the character, to the point where even the actor playing him feels that it feels right for the character. And I'm torn, though. I'm torn from a representational point of view, because on the one hand, this is exactly the type of role that we want to see for gay characters in entertainment, right? Where his sexuality does not define him. It is just an afterthought, just like anyone's sexuality, right? That first and foremost, he is Kara's friend. First and foremost, he is a wonderful computer genius. First and foremost, he has this horrible history with his father, the Toy Man. Those are all things that should define Win, and his sexuality should be last on that list. So I like that. But at the other time, I think that this is a show that's just so diverse heavy and has so many characters that are not white males, straight white males, that they need to hold on to the ones that they do. Because if Win was to become a gay character, the only straight white guy on the show would be Maxwell Lord, and he's evil. So I think that it's always important to remember that when you're trying to have representation anywhere, you have to have representation of everyone. You can't get so carried away with having representation for groups that usually don't have representation that you leave out, I guess you could say the groups that people accuse of having too much representation. But I think, you don't want to have, it's the pendulum effect, you have to swing too far in the other direction before you land in the happy medium in the middle. But I just think, it doesn't solve anything to do to others what you were upset about that was being done to you, right? So I have mixed feelings. If they could maybe introduce another character, although it's a very crowded cast, but another straight white male character, I would like to see Win go that route, because I just think it's such a natural fit with the character, and it would be a very good depiction of a gay character in comic book entertainment. All right, so that's my review of the latest episode of Supergirl. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on it. I know a lot of you loved it as much as me, so share them down below, and you can check out some other episodes right now.